Hey, Mahdi. Sorry about that.
You're good.
You good? Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for bearing with us through these technical difficulties and for spending your Thursday evening with us for our first virtual cooking class. I wanted to kick us off by talking a little bit about Kama DC before handing you over to our chef, Mahdi, who'll be walking us through how to make a delicious tagine tsfaya, which is a chicken and caramelized onion tagine. So my name is Diana. I'm a volunteer and board member of Kama. Kama is a nonprofit organization that's focused on building community through immigrant-led cultural experiences. What we do in the DMV area is that we partner with local restaurants, community organizations, and other institutions with the aim of providing a platform for immigrants to teach classes and share stories based on their skills and passions. So Mahdi today will be sharing one of his many talents, which is cooking. And I like to say that I'm here, I joined Kama for the food. My first event that I attended was food and immigration storytelling, to which I thought there would be food at, which is why I showed up. But luckily I ended up joining the organization. I love the mission, and we have a great team here. I also have Will, who's our director and board member, and then Sarah as well, who's a board member and will be cooking along. So we're happy to have you. So some brief points about today's class. You've already bared with the technical difficulties. Hopefully we won't have many throughout, but I'll be sharing the recipe in the chat box so that you can follow along. I'll do this shortly. I wanted to let you all know that we are recording this class to share on our website and with you all so that you can follow this recipe later on. So please feel free to not share your video if you don't want to be featured in the recording. Another reminder is please take photos throughout, before, during, and after, and then share them with us on our Instagram so that we can feature your dishes. And then please tag us and Mahdi. I'll be including his Instagram handle in the chat shortly. And then right before we get started, I know you'll have plenty of questions, so we'll be taking them in the chat box. And then there will be plenty of time to do a individual Q&A with Mahdi while the tagine is simmering. So I've been told there's ample time to chat then. And now I'm going to hand you off to our chef, Mahdi, who will introduce himself and get us started.
Thank you, Diana. So yeah, my name is Mahdi. What about me? I live in New York currently, but I'm from like the DC Nova area originally. But right now I'm a grad student. I'm just completed my first year with a master's program, Near Eastern Studies. I don't know what I'm trying to do with that, but we're here. So in terms of this dish, this is a dish that's pretty whatever that word is, exemplary of Moroccan cuisine. A lot of the times Moroccan cuisine tries to do this interplay between sweet and savory, and most of the time they do it right. It's actually pretty funny. I think Moroccan food is pretty good about the whole like sweet and savory combo, but when it comes to sweets themselves, I'm not the biggest fan. But that might be a controversial take, so maybe we want to unpack that. But in terms of this dish itself, traditionally it would be made in this. So this is what a tagine is. This is the cover. This is the bottom, and it's basically a slow cooker. And you would basically put some of the oil, onions, everything in the same time, and just let that cook for probably like 2 hours, and then you'll have the final product. But since I realized most people don't have this sitting in their house, I've tweaked the recipe for using in a pot. And honestly, nowadays most people do it in a pot. Like if you go to North Africa, they would either do it in a pot or a pressure cooker, and maybe finish it off in a tagine for like presentation purposes. So the first thing we are going to do, if we are all ready, I don't know if anyone had any questions, is going to be slicing these onions. So I have these 2 onions. And we're just gonna peel them, and we want to thinly slice them into long strands. So what I'm going to do first is cut them in half. I'll show you. I'll show you once I peel this onion.
It's great to see people cooking along. I don't know if I could handle the multitasking.
So you basically want, you want to cut your onion in half like this, and then you want to cut it long ways, like thin strands, long ways.
Can I ask a question briefly? If any of this is for anyone in the group, but does anyone have any tips on how not to cry when you're cutting an onion? This is always my major problem.
There's like a lot of remedies that you hear. There's like chewing gum, putting water on your hands while you do it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just sort of bear it.
I heard breathing from your mouth kind of helps.
Oh, nice.
But I'm not sure. I don't know. Okay.
We're Malika and Ahmed, by the way. Hello.
Hi, welcome. Yeah, feel free to introduce yourselves.
Hello, I just wanted to give a tip on with cutting onions. Do not cut the root, and you will not cry.
That's what I do too. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Christina. It's so nice to see you.
You too.
Okay, those are really good tips. Thank you, everyone. This has been a lifelong struggle for me, so I'm happy to get expert opinions.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tori.
Hi, Tori.
Hey, Tori.
Welcome. Is this your first Kama cooking class?
It is.
I was going to say you look familiar.
I'm Christina.
Hi, Christina.
Oh yeah, also, if you all could let me know if you have any sort of familiarity with Moroccan food, North African food, excluding Egyptian, because I'm not talking about Egypt when I say North Africa.
We're Egyptian. Hey.
I'm sorry.
We have 3 Egyptians here.
Here's the thing. I feel like there's this imaginary sort of rice couscous line when it comes to the Arab world.
Mm-hmm.
And like Egypt and Libya is the border between that.
That's true.
That's fair, but you don't have kushari in Algeria or in Morocco, in North Africa. Is that right?
No, not at all.
So I came in just a couple seconds late. So we're cutting onion into strips, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And for your convenience, Christina, the recipe's in the chat box.
Okay.
And we'll be sending it round at the end as well. And I just want to apologize again for the hiccup at the start. I don't know what happened there. This is our first cooking class, but hopefully it will be smooth sailing from here. So thank you, everyone.
So Mahdi, I wanted to ask you what serving size you're making right now. And when you make tagine, do you usually make a large serving size?
So usually when I make tagine, it's in the pot. So I'm really pretty like the tagine itself. So it's pretty restricting. Usually it can fit about 4, if you're using thighs, 4 chicken thighs. So I would say it's like a 2 to 3 person serving size.
Okay.
But during Ramadan, it's definitely a 1 to 2.
I was going to say you're going to have leftovers tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
I'm also fasting today, and for some reason I was extremely hungry, I think, just thinking about the Moroccan dish that I'll be watching you make today.
I just want to say hi, everybody. My name is Kristen, and this is my first cooking class. I'm friends with Sarah. We go to school together, so I'm really excited.
Welcome. It's great to have you. Mahdi, do you mind holding up one of the onions so that I can have a look at how thinly you're slicing?
Yeah, so I mean, I have them in a plate, but
Yeah.
like.
Okay. Nice. And
Yeah, they don't have to be crazy thin.
okay. And the point of these onions is that they will caramelize at the end.
So no, yeah, I mean, they're the base of the sauce itself.
Nice.
So when we say caramelized onions, it's not in the traditional sense where you're just gonna like let this sit until it becomes this like almost mush and like it's a very sweet, dark sort of thing. It's more, this is gonna be the base for the sauce. You're gonna add the spices, you're gonna add the chicken, and then add the water, and you're just gonna let that reduce. And when it's like almost done, add the honey, and that's really what's gonna bring it all together.
Mm.
So are we all done with the onions? Okay. So for the next thing you're gonna do is chicken. So what you want to do is, I already have it prepped, but I mean, if you want to wash it, pat it down, whatever you think, go ahead and do that. And then you're going to season it both sides with salt and pepper. And so this is going to be sort of the part where we depart from how a Moroccan usually would make this, because we generally wouldn't sear it. But I really like the taste of seared chicken skin that's been braised in some sort of sauce. I think it is quite a delicious flavor.
Hey, Mahdi, we have chicken drumsticks instead of chicken thighs. Is that a problem?
No, not at all. Yeah, then just season that, and you can still sear it. It will just be, you might want to do it for less than you would do a chicken thigh. So I would just watch it maybe like 6 to 8 minutes on each side.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
And Mehdi, with the chicken, when you're searing it, are you looking for a golden brown color or a little bit darker?
Yeah, exactly, golden brown.
Mm-hmm.
And are you putting a little olive oil in the pan?
So when it comes to sweet dishes, I mean, olive oil is of course a foundation in a lot of North African cooking, but for a lot of the sweet, savory dishes, we generally use vegetable oil or some sort of neutral oil.
Okay.
So that's what I'm going to use. I mean, olive oil, it's not like it won't, I don't know. I've never used olive oil. I don't know. I mean, I think it's definitely possible, but I prefer to use a neutral oil.
It also has something to do with the taste, I think, right? The olive oil is a little bit stronger.
Exactly, and the issue with olive oil is it has a low smoke point, so when it comes to searing, you want that really hot, and you don't want it to burn the oil itself. And it's a bit easier to do with olive oil, burning it, than it is to do with other oils.
Is tagine? Yes,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just wondering if we should be heating our pot right now.
No, not yet.
Okay.
I mean, unless you're ready. Yeah, sorry, I'm still cutting the fat off this chicken.
Oh, no, I'm not ready.
I was going to ask you, Mahdi, is tagine a winter dish or is it eaten like year-round?
It is eaten all the time. I think it's funny, I think a lot of the times when it comes to especially Moroccan cuisine, people tend to associate, oh, what do Moroccans eat? It's couscous, right?
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, we only eat that on Fridays after Jummah, after like the congregational prayer. It's not that ubiquitous. It used to be. You know, my mother is Algerian, and back in the day, that's what they would eat all the time, like in the like 60s, to the point where it was called ta'am, which in Arabic literally just means food.
What happened? Did people get sick of couscous?
I just think people started living better. I don't know, colonialism sort of sucked. Yeah, no, it was definitely a staple in terms of not even just eating it with sauce. People would just eat it with, you know, steamed with maybe some buttermilk and peas. Like meat, you know, meat was a luxury.
Mm-hmm. I just imagine eating tagine in the middle of a hot Moroccan or North African summer. It would just be, you'd just be sweating tagine, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, at least it's not usually as spicy.
Oh, right.
Yeah, fair. So
it has spice, lots of spices, but it's not necessarily spicy.
yeah, exactly.
Malika, I saw your selfie. It was cute.
Yeah, we're gonna post it. Thank you.
Please do.
Wait, Leanne, are you also Moroccan?
No, I'm Syrian American.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, I've never heard of Kama before. My friend Ina, who's on this call, she forwarded me the event, and I was like, oh, I have all those ingredients, so might as well join.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. No, I have a thing or two to learn from our Kama chefs. We've hosted a lot of cooking classes before. We've had Afghan cooking, Thai cooking, Syrian cooking, I believe. Will, any other cuisines that I'm missing?
There was Jamaican, Sri Lankan. Oh, and Mahdi's done 2 North African ones for us as well, in person.
Yeah, Mahdi's a veteran.
Okay, so if you all are ready, I have some oil in the pot. You don't want to do too much. Maybe like a tablespoon. You just want it, you know, the oil to cover the bottom, and you want to put that on high. And once it starts simmering, add the chicken skin side down. So but the leg, it doesn't matter for you all. But for people using thighs, skin side down, and we're just gonna let that sit and saute for like 10 minutes. But depending on the heat of your stove, just be sure to check it. And you don't want to overcrowd it, because if you overcrowd it, it'll end up steaming and not frying. But yeah, this is great.
When you're searing the chicken, your aim is not to really cook the chicken through, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you want to just get that nice color. But the most important thing is you want to impart the fond, the caramelized bits of protein that stick to the bottom of the pan.
Great. Mahdi, do you mind putting your camera on your stove just so we can take a look? Unless it's a fire hazard, of course. Oh, there we go.
Okay. And yeah, we're going to let that go for about 10 minutes. So 7:22 or 7:22, yeah. Oh, my clock it is.
Has anybody had tagine before, or is this the first time? First time? Yeah. I think it's always exciting to try a dish for the first time on your own because you don't really have a foundation of what it will taste like, what it's supposed to taste like.
Okay, so while the chicken is searing, I want you all to get a bowl, and if you have your spices ready, put the spices in without the salt because we're going to leave the salt for the end just to adjust, and then also we salted the chicken. So your cinnamon, your turmeric, your ground ginger, and black pepper. And they have the measurements, right?
I believe so. When the ingredients were sent around, does everybody have the measurements for the spices?
I do. Would you mind just telling us though, real quickly, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So I mean, I play around with it, but it's, I would say like a teaspoon of ginger, ground ginger. And then half a teaspoon of cinnamon. And then like a fourth, half of a teaspoon of turmeric. And then just, I would say half teaspoon of black pepper. And yeah, once you have the spices in, you just want to mix them all together.
Mehdi, how high is the heat on the chicken?
Sorry?
How high is the heat on the chicken?
I put it on high, like the highest setting.
Okay. That's always
Are we
something.
putting in the raisins too?
Sorry?
Are we putting in the raisins too? No.
No, just the chicken. We're just doing chicken right now.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I mean in the spices.
No, leave the raisins alone. What you want to do with the raisins is just get however many you want and soak them in water. But we can do this after we take the chicken out.
Should we be turning over the chicken in the pot?
Sorry?
Should we be turning over the chicken in the pot?
Yeah, so after like 8-10 minutes, turn over the chicken, and if it's a good color, yeah, turn it all the way over.
Thank you.
I have a feeling, Mehdi, you're having a hard time hearing us over the sizzling.
Yeah.
Will, are you planning on making this dish sometime soon?
Yeah, I'm regretting not cooking it. I worried that I wouldn't be able to like attempt to do the technical stuff and cook, and I think the earlier experience proves that I can't do two things. I can't even do one. I'm wondering where everyone is joining us from. Is everyone in the DC area, or are we all spread out?
I'm from Seattle.
Oh, welcome.
I'm on the West Coast in Seattle too.
Say DC.
You say it.
Oh, we're in DC right here.
Great.
I'm calling in from Kansas, but my stove fan is so loud. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, I can hear you. Welcome.
I'm from the DC area, but I'm self-isolating in Florida right now.
Nice. Welcome.
I'm hanging out in Maryland, so just across the border.
Welcome.
I'm actually from Carroll County, Maryland.
Welcome. Victoria, I think I heard you saying something, but you were muted. Where are you calling in from? Oh, you're still muted.
How about now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yep, I'm calling from Montgomery County, Maryland.
Welcome. Mahdi, what music are you playing in the background? It's hard. It's a little bit hard to hear, but I can hear the beat.
Yeah, it's he's a Moroccan artist. His name is Habib Belk, and he's a Ganawa artist. It's a particular genre that originates from Black communities in Morocco.
That's awesome. Is he a modern artist or someone?
Yeah, he's modern, pretty new.
That's cool.
Can you write down his name in the chat when you have a minute?
If we can hear you over the system. Yeah, I think the best part about these cooking classes in person, especially, is being able to taste the chef's dish at the end.
So if you all can see, that's sort of the color you're looking for.
So just to let you know as well, we have a couple of events. Oh wait, Matthew, are you about to do something? I don't want to, if it's a critical moment, I don't want to. Nope. Okay. So we have 2 events actually coming up next week. They're very different to this. The first one is going to be on Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. And that's going to be a discussion about how COVID has impacted entrepreneurship among displaced populations. So we have someone who has founded a food delivery service in New York. She's a Syrian refugee. There's someone who's going to be joining from Jordan, who's an Iraqi refugee who works with an organization called Jasur, working with entrepreneurship there. And then there's someone joining from Lebanon as well, who is a Syrian refugee who works for tech-fugees. So that's going to be a discussion online. And then on Thursday, very different. We have Jessica, who taught a Halloween makeup class back in October. She's going to be teaching a class now. I keep getting the name wrong. I think it's called Zoom to Vavoom, which is a makeup class for Zoom.
That's right. And we'll be doing future cooking classes in the future. So as long as you're signed up for the newsletter, we'll keep you posted. Maybe Mahdi will teach us how to make some good couscous.
Oh, that's the process.
So are you draining the excess oil now from the chicken?
Yeah, so, I mean, it really depends on how much you all used. I don't want to drain all of it, but I don't want too much. And don't do anything to the bottom of that pan. You'll need that. So don't think of cleaning it. So, where are we all at?
So our chicken's done. We're waiting for the next step.
Yep,
Okay.
we're all with you.
Okay, perfect. So now what you want to do is once you've drained your excess oil, you're going to have something that should look like this, right? So now what you want to do is turn up the heat to medium, or turn down, I guess. And it should already be pretty hot, and add your onions. And then add a little bit of salt to the onion so their moisture is drawn out.
Are you a season at every step kind of guy, Mahdi?
I try. I mean, I think one of the biggest hurdles when you first start cooking, and this was definitely mine, was just like figuring out how to use salt. Because, it's sort of a scary thing, because it's like, if you put too much, it's done. It's over. Right? So that's definitely a hurdle that a lot of people have to get past and not be scared. And try to figure out how to do it. But you're not putting that much. Really just a pinch, just so the onions get their moisture out.
Yeah, one of my, oh, go ahead, please.
Sorry?
Please.
Yeah, so you're just gonna stir this until they become soft. And then I want you all to add the spices and just vigorously mix that. By adding the spices dry, it allows them to bloom, release more of their flavor. And then we're going to add a little bit of water just so we can deglaze and get all the stuff from the bottom.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Should we add the spices now or when the onions are soft?
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. When the onions are soft?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Thank you.
That's something my mom does too, is that she'll let spices, or when she's making lentil soup, she'll just have the lentils and even rice cook in the oil for a bit, just to give it that extra flavor.
What did you say?
Oh, when my mom makes rice or lentils, or even adds spices to a dish, she'll have it cook in some oil and sit for a while, just to give it that extra flavor. It's one of my favorite steps, but I always have to make sure I move it fast before it burns.
Mahdi, I've just realized you're cooking for us while also fasting, right?
Yeah.
Adds an extra level of, you can't taste as you go, or not until the sun's nearly down, I guess.
Yeah, it's a bit annoying. I mean, some people, my mom has definitely, tasted food as she's gone. I don't know. Then it's all about intention and stuff. No, it's definitely annoying.
Yeah, I know some people will like taste something and then spit it out, but I'm pretty sure that that's technically supposed to break your fast.
Yeah. I don't know. I've like met people who are like really strict. Like someone like was like, yeah, I don't even swallow my own spit.
Oh, that's impossible.
Right? I don't know how, but that's
Well, I
what
know
they claim.
there's like the toothpaste mouthwash thing where some people are like, oh, you could technically break your fast, but I'm not ingesting mouthwash anyway, so.
And I think it's again an intention. No one's like is trying to be like refreshed by mouthwash or toothpaste.
Yeah, right.
How long should we do these onions for?
So you want them until they're very soft, and then add the spices.
Oh, okay. We already added the spices.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, but we continue stirring it?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Mahdi, what's your favorite part of this dish? Is it the chicken or, I mean, just overall the flavors? What's your go-to?
I'm a sauce guy. I really enjoy sauces. I really like just soaking up the bread in the sauce.
Oh yeah, that's an essential. And do you mind telling everybody what you told me yesterday about the type of bread that's usually served with this dish?
Yeah, so, I feel like usually when we think of the region, however we want to define that, it's usually like flat breads, pita breads of sorts. But in North Africa, most of the bread is more similar to French baguette or like loaves, crusty loaves with a lot of body to them. And that's really just to soak up these sauces. But, and then, come again back to the whole, we don't just eat couscous thing. I mean, yeah, couscous is like staple carb, but really it's bread. That's really what we're eating on a day-to-day basis. We don't really eat rice. I don't know why. Everyone around us eats rice, but yeah, you won't really find rice that much in the Maghreb. So I'm adding my spices now.
And how long are you cooking the spices for, Mahdi?
Literally just you want to vigorously stir because you don't want these to burn. So really just 30 seconds to a minute.
Okay. So there is the risk of the spices burning.
Exactly.
Keep them too long.
And then I'm just going to add a little bit of water. And this will deglaze the bottom. And this is where you want to scrape the bottom of the pot. To get all of that stuff lifted.
I love seeing the focus on all the screens. Do you see that, Will? People just deglazing. Mahdi, what happens if it gets kind of too brown? Do you still scrape it all off?
Yeah, I would still.
Okay.
Well, that usually is an issue. It's really as long as you have your heat controlled, because you don't want this to be too high.
How's it going on your end, Medica? Did you guys manage to caramelize
I
it?
think we burned the spices
No, I think
and did
it's
it too
perfect.
fast.
It's just
Everything too fast.
Do you have a solution for them, Menti? Is there something you can do?
What does it look like?
yeah, let's go.
I'll show you. We added a little bit more water because we didn't want it to burn, but
I think you should be fine.
okay.
Okay.
Like, does it, like, is there any black in there?
No,
Uh,
not. It's like two spots.
Two spots.
Two mini spots.
Okay, yeah, you're good.
How's everybody else doing? Well,
I definitely have black in mine.
oh yeah. Like spicy.
It doesn't bother me.
I mean, what's your biggest tip, Mahdi, for making sure that spices don't get blackened? Wow, look at that color.
So yeah, you want it to look something like this. Really, it's just you want to really pay attention. You want to vigorously stir it. You don't want to just leave the spices hanging out at the bottom of the pan.
And the heat's on low, right?
Like medium low, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just gonna wait till these onions get a little more soft.
And so, Mehdi, this is the tsfaya part of it.
Yeah, so, okay. Tsfaya refers to, a thing, like a mixture of caramelized onions that you will usually find as like a garnish, not garnish, but they'll put it on top of things. And something that's very different that we're not doing here is we're not gonna be adding orange blossom water, which is pretty key in here, and we're not gonna be adding any sugar. All the sweetness is gonna come at the end with the honey. Okay, so I think my onions are at a good level. So I'm going to add a bunch of water just so the bottom is covered.
Could you define a bunch of water?
Just so,
I don't know how much.
like, just until the bottom is covered. Like there's a pool all over the bottom.
Is that like an inch of water, maybe?
Yeah, yeah.
That's how my mom teaches me how to cook. Just a bunch, a pinch.
My mom too, and it makes me crazy.
I'm like, come on, just like give me something to work with here.
So you want something like this, if you all can see. And what you want to do now is add the chicken back in. So place the chicken on top of this bed.
I'll put the chicken in.
What's the heat situation? Is it like still on medium or is it off?
Yeah, medium low.
Medium low. Okay.
So add the chicken and add any accumulated juices from the chicken.
Does it matter which side we put down on the chicken?
I usually
Skin side
put
down
the
or...
skin side up.
Okay.
Do we put sauce on top of it, or do we just like put it in there and then leave it?
Just put it in there, and now we're just gonna add a bunch of water until you cover the chicken.
You just want to cover the chicken.
So you want something like this.
Oh, look at Ahmed. Okay, see, there's still a little bit poking out. Okay.
And this is when you're gonna cover it. And we're just gonna let that hang out for a bit.
Nice. So you have here, let simmer for an hour. What's the heat that you have, what heat setting do you have it on?
So it's gonna stay at around medium low.
Okay.
And basically what we're going to do is we want the chicken to get very tender, infuse all the spices that we put into the chicken. And I'm periodically just gonna check it. You wanna stir it. And you want to, there'll be a point where you wanna like slightly open the lid, you know? Like have a crack so the steam comes out and the water can eventually like start to reduce. Halfway, we're going to add our raisins.
I didn't see, is the chicken completely covered or like most?
You can have a little, like, just, it's poking out.
Okay. I can work with that.
It's broken out. Tell me about these raisins. Are they like the big golden raisins, or it just doesn't really matter?
It doesn't matter. I mean, people use both golden raisins or regular raisins. I have regular raisins on me, so that's what I'm using, but people use both.
Got it.
Hope this is okay. I'm using craisins.
Sorry?
I'm using craisins, like dried cranberries.
That's interesting. That's okay. That could work. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
And then it says that near the end you'll add the honey and adjust for salt. What are you looking for? Like what kind of balance between the salt and sweet? It's hard, unless you know, I think, what it tastes like.
It's hard to describe. It's really, you just don't want it to be overly one or the other. Like I would really just be pretty conservative with the honey at first. You want to, add maybe like a tablespoon at first, and then let that incorporate, taste it, and just see if it needs more. Because right now it's pretty savory at this point. The only sweetness that's coming is really from the onions, and that's like not that much. And after you do that, then it's really just the salt, if you feel like it needs to, flavor needs to be enhanced a bit more. But yeah, it's a pretty simple dish. There are definitely more involved tagines out there, but this is definitely one of the more beginner-friendly ones.
Do you have an all-time favorite?
The first one, like the first thing that I actually made, that I've actually cooked and I was actually like proud of, I was a senior in college, and it was the tagine with like chicken and preserved lemons and olives. Like when it comes to the two tagines that are most famous in Morocco, it is that one, and it is a tagine with lamb and prunes. Those are like the two big ones that people generally associate when they talk about tagine.
What are preserved lemons called in Arabic?
We call them hamd and sayr. But I know hamd is not a word that everyone else use. That's what we say for lemon, because limon in Morocco is that's orange. It makes no sense. It really makes no sense.
Okay. Did you say lamb and prune tagine?
Yeah.
And is it a similar way preparation?
Sort of. With that one, you're going to be, I'm trying to think what's different about it. It's a slightly different process, but like ultimately, like the spices are very similar.
Aha.
Yeah. But sorry, back to like, so I tried to cook the preserved lemon chicken olive tagine solely because I hate my mom's version. My mom's version is the Algerian version, and I don't like the Algerian version that much. The Algerian version actually doesn't use preserved lemons. It's just like olives, like an olive overload in chicken, and I never really cared for it that much, but I was always intrigued in the Moroccan version. So when I first made it, it was horrible. I didn't do it right. But the second time I made it, it was very good. And that's definitely the thing that started me on my culinary journey. But that's probably my favorite.
Speaking of Mehdi's culinary journey, you should definitely follow him on Instagram. And I'm not sure, I think you have a Twitter as well, right,
Yeah,
Mehdi?
it's the same handle.
Awesome. Yeah, he has some delicious looking recipes.
Can you share the handle?
Yeah, I'll write it right now on the chat. And Mehdi, I believe we owe you a congratulations because you mentioned that you just graduated, or at least you just finished your classes.
Yeah, I just finished my first year. Yeah.
Oh, congrats.
Woo. Yeah, it was very hard to keep the motivation by the end, but we're here now.
Yeah, now you have some tagine to celebrate.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm just gonna actually just check on it, just stir it a bit. You really just want to keep it on a simmer. You want it to be bubbling, but not like boiling.
And Mehdi, you said let sauce reduce to desired thickness. I mean, how do you kind of determine what thickness you want? Is it if you want something else?
I don't know what people want. I don't like it to be too watery. So I'm just going to. I mean, you still want it watery because in the end, when you add the honey, it will thicken. So you don't want to reduce it too much. But you definitely want you don't want it so thick that if you drew it with the back of a spoon, like the dividing line just stays or slowly forms back. But you definitely don't want it to be soupy.
Got it. How is everybody's looking so far? Is it pretty soupy? Pretty thick?
It's a little bit soupy, but we left the cover open just for it to I don't know, condense or something. And then I think you said when you put the honey, it thickens, right?
And the honey goes in at the very end, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And the raisin's about halfway done.
Exactly.
It's about halfway done. Okay.
And does the honey thicken it, Mehdi?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I keep nibbling on the raisins or craisins. I'm gonna have to add more.
I was going to, I know it's 7:45, but I wanted to make sure everybody had a chance to ask Mahdi any questions. Otherwise, I have a few for him about his favorite dishes.
Yeah, sorry.
You want to ask a question, Ahmed? Mahdi, how did you get into cooking, and what is your immigrant story? Because this is an immigrant group, right? DC. So
yeah, so I was born in Morocco. I lived there for a few years, and then I lived in the Gulf, and so in Bahrain and Saudi. Is there another fellow Gulf former resident? Or,
yeah, I lived in Qatar for 14 years.
Oh wow, I'm sorry. No,
yeah, I mean, it was not the best, but I was a kid, so I didn't really care. So
right, same here.
Yeah.
Same here. But yeah, I lived in the Gulf until I started middle school here in Virginia, and yeah, then I went to college in Virginia, undergrad, lived in DC for a few years, and then decided I hated my job, and now I'm pursuing my master's. And in terms of how I got into cooking, yeah, again, it really started my senior year of college. I was living I was a RA, a resident assistant in an apartment complex on campus, and I had to do programming, so I was like, I might as well try this cooking thing for my residency if they actually come. And it was to varying success. I definitely had a lot of experimenting, but it was really that summer after I graduated, I was wallowing in unemployment, and I decided to be like, like, Mom, you should, I should really learn something useful as I apply to jobs and get no response for like months. And since then I've been cooking, and I've been trying to get more serious about it in terms of like posting what I make, because usually I was just too lazy. I used to post like Instagram stories, but then I like got lazy and I was just like, this is too much effort, but I'm trying to get back into that. But yeah, my mom is Algerian, my dad is Moroccan. They met in a barber shop in Algiers.
Oh, that's sweet.
And just a follow-up question, how do you identify? Ahmed was wondering, can I tell him about the Egyptian?
Yeah.
Well, you can ask him.
Well, I asked her if like when Diana introduced herself, you said Syrian American, right? So I was like, whenever my friends like ask me where you're from, I usually just say Egyptian.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I don't know what difference it makes, but like some of my friends still now think that I'm like basically a foreigner or some kind of, so I don't know.
He wants to know whether he should call himself Egyptian American or Egyptian. What do you guys think?
That's now we've all gone through this like crisis at points. I don't know. I mean, I remember my senior year, I definitely had this whole like, am I African? Am I blah blah blah? Like, what am I? I don't know. At least in my perspective, I'm the most comfortable saying I'm American. I mean, ultimately, when I go back to Morocco, it's funny. Like when I go back to Morocco, people are like, "Why do you speak like that?" And it's because I speak more with an Algerian accent. And like sometimes, like, and even like sometimes, like because growing up in the Gulf, partly, sometimes my words come out sounding more pronounced than how a North African would usually slur their words together. So usually people are like, and it's funny, when I go to Algeria, people don't question me, but Morocco, for some reason, people always question me. So that's annoying, and it's always like, it's one of those things like, why do I feel like I have to explain myself in this country all the time, so why do I have to explain myself to my own people, allegedly, right?
Totally.
And, I'm very skeptical of the whole third culture, like, term. I feel like that's a term I only see white people doing, like
Actually,
military.
can you explain the third culture concept for Ahmed, please?
I mean, the way I've heard it articulated is like, my parents grew up in a particular culture, and I'm living in a country with a particular culture, and I'm a mix of that, so I end up becoming this weird fusion that's neither one or the other, so it's this third culture that is how I like identify my experience. But ultimately that like comes off as like, usually you find Americans saying that about like, whether their parents are stationed somewhere in another country for the like State Department or aren't like military. And it's just like, I don't know if anyone has thoughts about that.
Yeah, it's kind of ambiguous, but I didn't know that that was the definition of third culture, but it kind of accurately describes how I feel most of the time. My parents are both Syrian and immigrated to the US, and I was born in Arizona and raised in the US my whole life. But I'm the oldest, so I just feel like I'm this like enigma of someone who's both Syrian and American. It's kind of hard to explain, but I identify very strongly with my Syrian identity, which is why I say Syrian American and not American Syrian, for example.
So my mother is an immigrant, and I was born in America, and my dad was born in America. So this is all like stuff that I've dug in deep about. And I just typically tell people I'm American, and that's just my choice. Like I didn't grow up with Peruvian culture, and so I just say I'm American because that's what I identify as. But if people dig deeper, and they always do when you have dark skin, they're always like, well, but where are you really from? I just tell them I'm Latina, and that works for me. Like, that shuts them up. At the end of the day, like, that's all I care about. So
Right.
that's just my experience. But I hear you guys on all of that. That third culture thing is, you know, it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, you probably, I mean, you kind of spend a lifetime figuring it out. And I think it changes like when you have kids and you're trying to figure out, you know, what they should identify as, or if you're going to introduce your language and even your, you know, ethnic cuisine into your household. I think it's definitely an evolving term. Mahdi, I was going to ask you if you used to spend your summers in Algeria and Morocco. After you moved to the US.
Yeah, I was definitely not one of those people that did it every summer, but I definitely went to Algeria more than I go to Algeria more than I go to Morocco, which is funny because yeah, it's like I'm a Moroccan citizen, but I haven't been to Morocco lately because there's a conscription law, like mandatory conscription law in effect, and it's very vague about whether it refers, you know, like applies to dual citizens, people living out of the country, and I don't want to play that game because, you know, there's a very good chance I'll just get whisked off right when I get at the airport.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, so, but that's until you're 26. So I'm 25, my birthday's in the summer, so hopefully that'll change. But yeah, I definitely go to both countries. The last time I was in Morocco, I actually went by myself, which was a good experience because it's sometimes you get the sense that like our parents are like shielding the country from us, and it just becomes like this sort of guided field trip of like, oh, we go to this family's house, oh, we go to like downtown, or we go to some special place, and then we go back home, you know, and it's nothing, you can't really just go out. I mean, and for legitimate reasons, you know, like, you know, especially for women in some of these countries. Yeah, no, I totally understand. But it was definitely a good way to explore a lot more of the country than I would have seen if I, you know, just went on a family trip. But yeah.
Absolutely, it's such a beautiful country. I hope you get to visit in the summer, if we can travel again.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. It was there was a funny story that came out of Morocco that was like they when like Corona was first like really starting, they got like, there was a confirmed case. They found the confirmed case in this city, and they went to in like hazmat suits to get this girl who like had the case. And when they got to the house, they like got her in the truck, but then the family was like, but wait, we have tea ready for you. You have to have some desserts before you leave. Like, seriously?
That's amazing. Yeah, it's a testament to Moroccan and generally, I think, regional generosity, which is often at the detriment of the public good. So I know we're 10 minutes past, and I just wanted to make sure you all had a chance to ask Mahdi any final questions, and to remind you to please post your final tagine dishes. I'm really excited to see them and to salivate over them. Yeah, if anybody has any other questions. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks, of course, to Mahdi for leading this class. So we look forward to having you again.